The question for today is inspired by an article on ESPN.com. ESPN.com, college football, tried to rank the top 25 teams in college football, but not just for this upcoming year, for the next 3. So 2024, 2025, 2026, which programs will be the best? So we thought, all right, let's answer that question nationally. Let's look at it. Let's see where the ACC fits in. And also, let's rank the 3 triangle teams on who will have the best next 3 years. They had Georgia number 1 overall. Boring.
It's like, okay, yeah, and also it's hot outside. Like, what's your point?
I don't know. I know. I always scroll to the top hoping to see someone else, but it's not. Especially now that Saban's gone from Alabama. Clemson was 12th. Okay. Louisville was 21st.
A lot of people were so high on Louisville.
They really like what Braum is doing.
Yeah. I mean, granted, they did get to the ACC championship game just this past season.
Here's the problem I have with it. And by the way, like I've seen this happen at the FCS level back when here. Let me tell you why I bring up the FCS level. Okay. Right now, transfers can go anywhere and play right away, right? Before the transfer portal became what it is now, the only way you could transfer and play right away was either to graduate, be a grad transfer, or transfer down a level. So you could go from the FBS to the FCS, the old 1A to 1AA, and you could play right away. And I played at the FCS level. There were schools, and at times Delaware was one of them, that built so much of their success on the transfers, right? It was, hey, this year, completely new team out of the transfers. This year, completely new team out of the transfers. And what it did was it made for a wild lack of consistency. Some years, you hit on it, right? You got the right transfers. The guys fit in with your program. Gangbusters, go to the playoffs, make the Final Four. Some years, you struck out. You brought in a whole bunch of guys who it's like, oh, that's why their FBS team didn't want them. And that's why they weren't playing. And I'm worried, like a team like Louisville. Louisville, they hit the portal hard, man. Now, It makes sense when you're a coach taking over for the first time and you're trying to build. If you just become Transfer U, which it looks like Louisville is doing because they're running it back with a lot of new guys again, that's a tough way to be consistent. You're going to have highs, but you're also going to have lows. And then SMU 22nd.
Once again, I don't get it.
I mean, what I will get is they have money.
They got a lot of that.
And I get it. So, like, if you just say wins follow the dollars, fine. But that's really the only justification I can find for it. Usually when you jump up a level, people expect you to struggle. They're jumping into the power conferences, jumping into the ACC from whatever it was, the American, and no one is expecting any growing pains. They'll just be they'll be a top 25 team over the next 3 years is what ESPN is saying. Forget that they used to play also-rans and now they're going to be playing Clemson and State and Carolina and Florida State and Miami and Louisville. Like, I don't know. That one, I'll be darned. And that's it for the ACC in the top 25. ESPN thinks there will be 3 ACC teams in the top 25 over the next 3 years. And you could argue that only one of them is actually an ACC team. You could say Louisville isn't a real ACC team, and you could say SMU isn't even a fake ACC team. See, I don't even know what conference they're in. So that's my reactions to the national list. When it comes to the 3 schools in the triangle in the ACC, I thought this was interesting. One of them, we'll get this one out of the way. Duke's going to be 3rd. Changing a coach, they have to lay a new foundation. The transfer portal hit them hard. They're traditionally not the most football-y school out there.
Sure. There's always the national perception, basketball school.
Exactly. Not to say I don't like some of the things going on in Durham. Right? Obviously, they've proven over the last 2 years they could build some buzz. The Mike Elko era proved that there's some potential there. Manny Diaz has to find a way to capture it in his own way or build off of what Elko was doing. Malik Murphy I'm a fan of. There's some wide receivers I'm a fan of. But in the scheme of things, they're going to be third, and I don't think it's close. NC State versus UNC was interesting to me. I think going into this year, NC State's going to have much more expectations. But NC State building out of the transfer portal, taking a player like Grayson McCall, that does have some, there could be some transitions coming up after 1 year, and this is about the next 3. UNC has a guy named Bryce Baker coming in the class of 2025. So this year they're going to be, I would say, the lower expectation of the two. The next year they have a big-time quarterback recruit coming in that everyone's excited about. But they always, will Mac Brown be around for 3 years? That's a legitimate question. I'm pretty confident Dave Doran isn't going anywhere for 3 years. Where's Mac Brown going? Or is he still around? And if not, then everything I said about Duke being in transition would apply to UNC also. NC State, I like their incoming freshman, by the way. I like Bailey, their quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's 6'7", I think 130 pounds. So he needs to get a year in a college weight room. And by the way, that's an exaggeration, just so you know. My point is he's skinny. But partially, and this is where the context matters, he had legitimately maybe the best high school receiving core in the country. But go watch his high school highlight film. There are some pop-in throws there, some wows. So the future is bright at the quarterback position for both. I think I'm going to go NC State 1, UNC 2, Duke 3 over the next 3 years in the triangle. But there's arguments to be had amongst those top two. I think Duke's firmly in the 3. Anything you want to press me on, Dennis?
No, I don't disagree with you. I think the fact that we saw NC State's recruiting class that they brought in and also the transfers that they brought in are so young for the most part. I know Grayson McCall, quarterback, question is what's that position going to look like 3 years from now? But you say that every year when it comes to college football, really, because your quarterback is probably not going to be there for more than 2 years anyway.
Unless you start a true freshman.
Unless you start a true freshman, which, depending on where you are, if he plays really well, who knows who's going to become calling with dollars and cents to transfer somewhere else. It's
That's
just what it
question.
is.
Gosh, are we ever going to see a 4-year starter again? Will there ever be a Phillip Rivers who wins 4 bowl games?
No, probably not.
Yeah, it's wild.
Because also sometimes you look at it, you have a transfer, for example, like Malik Murphy at Duke, already has a couple years under his belt at Texas. If he plays 2 really good seasons at Duke, he might be in the NFL.
And if you go to Georgia or Alabama and start as a true freshman, if you're still starting 3 years later, you're going pro.
Exactly.
Because you're either benched or you're good enough that you're going pro.
Mm-hmm.
We might never see another 4-year starter
Probably
at a
not.
power conference school.
Probably not.
That is wild.
Maybe that young guy at Virginia, I can't remember his name.
Calandria, but I mean, I don't even know if you consider him the starter this past year.
Yeah.
I don't know if he started at least the early games. And even so, if he plays great, I mean, Riley Leonard played great at a basketball academic AC, and I wouldn't even know if he had showed great potential at a basketball academic ACC school. Hit the portal. Notre Dame's given his whole team beats on behalf of him.
I mean, Sam Hartman played 7 years of college football.
You're right. Maybe that's the thing. We won't get a 4-year starter. You'll either be a 2-year starter or a 9-year starter.
Exactly.
There's just not that middle ground. We might average 4.